So, hi everyone. Welcome to episode 10 of Build with Stakki. And this week we have Chris Wickson on from Reelflow, which is, I guess you would call it a chat bot or a website chat. I'll let you do a much better job of that than I have, Chris. But Chris has a long record of consulting, helping build startups, having previously built a crew, exiting that with his co-founder, Andy. And yeah, we're going to dive in today into all of the lessons he's learned over the years of go-to-market and building startups. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself and do a much better job than I did of what Reelflow is and the mission?
Sounds good. Thanks, James. Well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, sure. So Reelflow, third startup. And as James alluded to, whilst we're not technically a chatbot, the product operates the website real estate where you might use a chatbot. So it's a good sort of similarity there. But Reelflow really is all about interactive short form video product for B2B websites, all designed to better engage our buyers today when they're on our website through the power of short form video and really giving the buyer, the visitor, much more control over the way they navigate and experience a website, whilst also leveraging the power of video, right? The kind of talking head content that we know is really popular on social. So early days, we launched late last year, got live on nearly 20 websites now. So we're up and running, we've got paying customers, products in a great place. We're excited about what we're building, but still early days for us. And then, just briefly prior to Reelflow, Andy, my co-founder, and I, we built, as James said, a B2B event technology company called Accrue. We launched that in 2013 and had a 6-year run with that business, raised some money along the way. We were growing fast and we were very fortunate to get acquired by an American company called Integrate in 2019, which was great timing to exit an event technology company, knowing what happened in 2020 with COVID. So yeah, had a great run with that business, learned a ton, had a great journey as part of Integrate as well for 2-3 years. But Andy and I, we sort of knew we had one more in us. So back in building mode with Reelflow.
Excellent. Yeah, really, really cool story. And I guess that one thing, and we've spoken about this a few times, me and you, but the real value that I think our viewers will get from someone like yourself is like, how has that, I guess, the go-to-market in the B2B space, how's that landscape really changed? And when you had Accrue, I assume the tools and the options out there and even buyer behavior was just probably extremely different to what you see now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it gets bandied around a lot that, the landscape shifting dramatically or this sort of seismic shift in go-to-market. But I kind of think it's true. And this isn't an overnight thing. I think this has been gradually creeping up on us. And COVID sort of accelerated a lot of these changes as well. But yeah, if you go back to the early days of Accrue, so when we really honed in on B2B events, which would have been around 2014, 15, a couple of years under our belt, we sort of figured product market fit for us was in the B2B space. So as you alluded to back then, the tech stack was almost non-existent compared to what it is today, right? We had HubSpot as our marketing automation platform, and we were sort of using elements of what has gone on to become their sort of CRM. Pipedrive was just launching. We used them for a while, and it was at the early days of scraping data. It was kind of like we were in the sort of Wild West in the early days of data scraping. Some of those early tools we were using, and we, as Andy and I, were like disciples of SaaS from the early days of 2013, 14. We used to go out to SaaSta in San Francisco, and we'd come back from the States with all these ideas and concepts that no one really was doing in the UK at that time.
Yeah.
So I really believe we were one of the first SaaS companies in the UK to have SDRs and customer success teams. I remember like telling people about these, and they were like, what do these jobs do? What are they? And our early SDRs, we were, scraping data and spamming people from our own inboxes.
Yeah.
And it worked, right?
Yeah.
Because people their inboxes weren't anything like they were today. So the first couple of years of the business, we really were able to build through largely outbound, but what you would just never, stuff you would never do now. Just, I would be out for an hour and come back, and my outbox, my sent items would just be stacking up these emails at appropriate person at.
Yeah.
But like I said, at the time it worked. Like we had a product that piqued people's interests, which obviously helped, and we had some case studies and stories, but it was really effective for us until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And like everything, once something starts to work and people start adopting it, the sort of effectiveness of it starts to wane. But I think there was also, from a buyer perspective back then, buyers were more willing to engage with vendors. We're going back 10 years now. I think there was more of a willingness because I guess the tools and tech on offer, it wasn't as noisy. So people were a bit more willing to be like, yeah, I'll jump on a 30-minute demo and take a look at this product I've never heard of or never heard of you guys. And I just don't think that that doesn't happen today, right? We know
Absolutely.
buyers today are increasingly reluctant to speak to vendors until they're much further into their journey and they've made their own decision, and then they're ready to speak to a vendor in a lot
Yeah.
of cases. So very different landscapes.
Yeah, and there's 2 points I want to pick up on there. So I'll come back to the second one about buyer centricity and seller centricity later. But one of the things that I'd notice, or I'd probably, having worked with you previously, like knowing that, like, I guess, early stage of SaaS that you spoke about, and that early stage of, basic tools, data scraping, follow it, then just doing outreach, kind of probably like pretty much all manually for a long period, probably like entrenched like the really good foundations and basics. Get good product market fit, know your personas, know your messaging, and be consistent in your outreach.
Yeah.
And so now, when we see people who are trying to build from scratch and they haven't built those foundations, that's what causes this crazy market and probably damages buyer retention and stuff. So, do you think that really served like you and Andy, I imagine as well, in
Yeah,
your sales
absolutely.
foundation from the start?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm like massive believer, probably more so today than I was 10 years ago. Like, there are no silver bullets or like growth hacks in some businesses. Yeah, there are little tactics, but I just think if you're selling to like mid-market and enterprise type businesses or larger businesses, and you haven't got a true like product led, cheap and cheerful, single buyer, pay on your credit card, off you go. That's a very different game to where the rest of us are trying to operate. So I was a massive believer in like getting those fundamentals right and then doing that consistently over time. And we knew inbound was going to be important for us, but inbound is not something you can just turn on and it happens overnight. That takes months and years in cases to build your brand and your story and your awareness, build your online presence, case studies, all that great stuff that you've got to do that takes time. So whilst we were building that, we were like, we know we need the outbound engine to start firing. The flywheel, as HubSpot often talk about, we really started to feel that. It took a couple of years, but just before we got acquired, we really did have the flywheel firing. And by that, I mean, outbound got a hell of a lot easier because when we were prospecting into accounts, they already knew about a crew. And then inbound was getting easier. We've started to get more and more inbounds coming through. And you know what? They were accounts we'd probably prospect into a few months ago. So the flywheel really started to kick into gear. And so that's kind of the approach we're taking with RealFlow. Like, this is not a quick overnight thing. We're in this for the next decades, and we know we've got to build these blocks and get these sort of foundation blocks right. And it takes time.
Yeah, and like thinking longer term, not like what a lot of I think what we see now, because there are so many tools available and people building these go to market engineers and go to market stacks and
Yeah.
putting 15 different tools in. The longevity in that, I think, is really going to bite people in maybe 2 years' time, maybe 3 years' time, where they haven't grounded it in good foundations, built trust over time. And that's where buyers coming onto that buyer centricity point. Like, we probably need to be a lot more buyer centric, and
Yeah.
all the foundations you've built over the last few years, I know you are, from that sort of mindset as well.
Yeah, you're right. Like, as the barrier to entry from a tech perspective continues to come down, right? I could sit here now and probably spin up a
Yeah.
lightweight SaaS product that we could launch into the world. So there's that temptation, I guess, if you're in startup mode, to go chase those things and chuck stuff out there and try and do these hacky approaches. And as I say, don't get me wrong, there are certain products where that will be effective and you probably can go and quickly grab a load of market share. But say if you're selling into like large organizations, mid-market enterprise, as we're trying to do on this sort of journey with Reelflow, then you've got to play the long game. You've got to be willing to put all those foundations in place because it does take time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's, I guess, dive into. I'd like to just maybe understand a little bit more about RealFlow. I'll give you the chance to speak about that, just because we're on that buyer centricity point,
Yeah.
and kind of I mean, it's kind of some of the reasons behind why we built Stakki, how we've built it and stuff to help educate buyers, give them a space to explore in peace. And some of the stuff I've spoken to you about, video capture, the video element of Reelflow, seems to really be along that buyer centricity, a buyer focus, rather than trying to just get people selling.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few things going on, reasons why we're building Reelflow. The first one is this shifting buyer landscape that we've talked about, and like all the data supports this. Like we know buyers, as I said earlier, like reluctant to speak to vendors until they're much further in their journey. They, generally speaking, want to empower themselves with more information. They'll do their own research. They'll go a lot further into understanding the vendors who are out there, the products, the services, and they will do that anonymously, silently, on their phone, on their desktop. So, we know conversion rates on B2B websites in mid-market enterprise are like 1 to 2%. And I think often we obsess too much with conversion if you're in these types of businesses, because the reality is 98, 90%, 99% of the traffic on your website are not there to convert there and then. They're not in high intent buyer mode. They're just poking around. They're figuring out who you are, what you do. They could be anywhere on that journey, and that's okay. Like that's just the reality of the landscape we're in right now. So obsessing over like, if we cram a load more book a demo buttons across our site, are we going to drive up conversion a little bit? Maybe, but I'm much more in the like, okay, so can we, and this kind of leads on to Reelflow, like, can we build a much more engaging experience, like self-guided experience for our buyers, so that by the time they leave our website and go back to their emails or whatever, whether that's 30 seconds or 30 minutes, are they more informed about who we are, what they do? Have they found the answers to some of the questions they might have had? Have they got a better impression of who we are and what we do? And I think video is such a great way of doing that. We know we're all consuming more video than we ever have. We see it, in like a lot of consumer trends. They come over to B2B. We see LinkedIn now really prioritizing video content. This sort of short form, authentic video we know is really effective. So we're help with Reelflow, we're helping businesses bring that kind of short form video experience to their websites, but the interactive elements of it is key. This isn't just a embed a YouTube on a page. This is about, turning it into more of an interactive experience with the buyer, so they can sort of I've heard a few people say like, pick your own adventure, pick your own route through a website, really with a sort of concierge experience. The founder, one of the exec team, who's kind of there to help answer questions and navigate people around the site.
Yeah, that's really, really good way of putting it. And I think it's that, when you maybe going from cold to hopefully working with customers, you want to go through that sort of like, they like you, they know you, they trust you. And it helps to accelerate that. They can, if someone goes to Reelflow, they see your face, they see Andy's face, giving them explanation, insight, and helping them navigate to the answers they're actually looking for, rather than just aimlessly scrolling. They go to my website, you see me saying why I've built it. I know it's on like my sales coach and stuff as well. And it helps get to that trust element quicker. Yeah. Putting buyers first, helping their experience.
Yeah, there's something about the joining up that experience. Like if I see your video content on LinkedIn and then I'm on your website and I see more video content from you, or perhaps I've been on your site and I've heard and seen you, and now I'm on LinkedIn and I see you again, that familiarity that a video can bring, where, let's face it, there's a competitive landscape. And as we alluded to with AI now, it's getting even more competitive because the barrier to build is so much easier. So what differentiates companies? Well, it's often your people and your story and how you position yourselves. So, I think video is a really healthy, like great way of being able to articulate that and do that whilst building that human connection, as we talked about.
Absolutely. And, it's all about like AI is there to help parts of the process and make parts of the process more efficient. But like, you need humans. People want to buy from humans. They want to engage with humans. So the more you can show that, the better.
Yeah. We're in we could probably spend the rest of this chat talking about like AI, which we mentioned we won't, but my view on it. So we are using AI throughout Reelflow product, whether that's in the planning part of this, helping companies understand what flows they should use on their website, what interactive experiences they want to do. And then from a video creation perspective, we've got an interesting paradox going on right now, because on one side, we know in B2B, trust and like authentic video content, real people, is powerful. and arguably even more powerful now with where we're at with AI. But at the same time, the ability to now create really great sounding and looking video is here today. So we've got an interesting, we're plugging into those tools, we're leveraging this, and it's going to be an interesting couple of years ahead. It's sort of I guess maybe the dust will never settle on this, but as we go into this sort of next era, how do we get the balance right of authentic video with the ease of content creation?
Yeah. And that's I guess what's obviously you and Andy have started the business, you've got paying customers and everything now. It's probably still very much founder-led sales. What's the makeup of the team at the moment before we get into maybe looking at the tools or talking about what tools you could use?
Yeah, so right now, as you alluded to, it's sort of founder-led. It's myself, Andy's my co-founder on the product side. We have one person in the team right now, one full-time employee, Will, who's joined us in October last year as a founder associate. So all-rounder, sort of classic startup hire number one, wears many different hats, working with me and Andy on lots of different things as you have to do in these early stages. And then we are just about to start to add the next layer to the team. So now we're at a great place where we've sort of validated the concept, the ideas, alluded to, we've got customers, we're sort of gearing up for the next launch. So we're going to be bringing in additional sales capacity, but that is very much to sort of lock arms with me and give me more bandwidth, as opposed to me sort of passing the sales buck. We're way off me transitioning out of sales. I think I'm a massive believer if the founder can't take this thing to the first million in ARR, then why would you expect anybody else to be able to do that? So yeah, that's my sort of goal. If myself and this sales resource we're bringing on, Stu, if between us we can sort of lock arms and get to this first million in ARR whilst we start to build the go-to-market engine around us, then we'll be ready for that next sort of phase of growth.
Excellent. And that's going to be one of the questions which we wanted to cover is for you, is it that million ARR mark? Is it a capacity issue and that's a rough figure to think about before you bring in other team members and stuff? Do you have to have the whole engine worked out, or where are the markers?
I think
more people?
I mean, a million is just obviously a nice round number milestone to sort of aim for. I think so I guess beyond that, things I'd be thinking about as we look to sort of expand that team on the sales front in particular is have we got a truly repeatable sales process? And have we not only got that, but have we sort of got that into a playbook that you could genuinely coach somebody on of how you're going to run the sales operation? Have we figured out pricing, positioning, the process from initial demo through to close, the RevOps under the hoods? Have we got those things in place? And then crucially, and we made this mistake in a crew, have we got the pipeline generation? Hiring more salespeople without pipeline is asking for trouble, in my opinion. A very expensive way of burning through cash. But if you haven't got the leads to feed them, then
really good.
So all these things will be in my mind over these next sort of 6, 9, 12 months that we have to sort of, again, come back to that flywheel description.
That's such a good point on the pipeline. Is often I see startups and founders and stuff saying, we need to hire SDRs because we need pipeline. Then you need to have some level of process and some level of product market fit, messaging process, but you need to have some level of pipeline already generated, or at least leads for them to start picking up on. Otherwise, it's like you say, it's a really expensive way to actually wait to get to the pipeline in another 6 months, another 12 months. And then you're probably going to end up with a few irritated salespeople that come in. They don't earn commission for a long time. And then you're just going to be back to square one if they don't willing to stay.
And I really believe that doing cold outbounds without marketing air cover, as one of my old marketing colleagues used to call it, is the hardest form of outbound. If you are trying to do outreach into a completely cold base that has got no idea who you are, no idea that the problem that you solve even exists, if you're in a new category, that is incredibly hard, because we all know everybody's inboxes are rammed. People are, all these tactics can work. We know email can be effective. We know cold calling can be effective, but in isolation, it's so hard to do. So these two have to kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. It
You
all
say
needs to be
throwing like
coordinated.
we made these mistakes in a crew, right? We hired the junior SDRs and we threw emails out there, and with some success, we hired like junior salespeople before we had that fixed, and they didn't work out.
Yeah.
You know, so we sort of learned the hard way in that
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, and like that just would not work today. It's way too crowded for the market. But let's look at sort of what you are using and maybe what you are considering using and build with Stakki as the labeling goes. So where are you today? What's your sort of start? I think you mentioned HubSpot already.
Yeah, so I'm a big like HubSpot fanboy, and have been a HubSpot user for God knows how long, a long time. Used HubSpot on and off. So like HubSpot, I sort of view as our like spine of our stack, given the capabilities of it today. In particular, you know, obviously the product has evolved a lot over the last decade, and so I sort of view HubSpot as the spine. And then in my mind, anything, I think this is a like really interesting. Your take on this, and you're in this world. Like you've got to be really careful with building the tech stack too early. And again, one of my colleagues at Integrate would say, like, don't let the tail wag the dog here. Don't let the tech like set the strategy. Like set the strategy and then figure out the tech and tools that you need for that.
100%, and that's exactly what, as you know, that's exactly why I've built Stakki and like built it in this way. Like you should be able to work through this and like, okay, we've got the CRM. I'm going to make sure that's really well set up. Then we can start to add in tools that help us build a list, and then we can go to data enrichment. You know, you're not looking for like AI 3000 pipeline X13 that
Yeah.
the next person on LinkedIn has been shouting about.
Yeah, agreed. Like, yeah, exactly. It does come back to a lot like getting these fundamental building blocks in, and then building on them. So yeah, like I really like the way you've got this sort of like laid out as we think about this. So we've got our spine, which would be HubSpot. Everything we use has got to
feed
integrate
that,
and
service that
flow
list.
through.
So what are your next thoughts then? Is it just literally at HubSpot at the moment? So we can kind of talk openly about what you could do, what you couldn't do? Or?
Yeah. We are
nice.
it's like perfect timing because we literally are like, let's say over these next 2-3 months, and really like starting to build this engine out and really start to ramp up our whole go-to-market game. So yeah, like as I think about this as we move along, like okay, we've got a pretty what I'm excited about where we're at is like we have a pretty clear idea of our ideal customer profile, our ICP, and we know the buyer personas within that the product's resonating with. Good. So we're at a good place to now start thinking about data and how we go and build, like do the research, get the accounts and buyers.
Yeah. And have you got preferences for any tools at the moment or considered any? Or
I mean, LinkedIn Sales Nav is an obvious one that we will, and I have a Sales Nav subscription.
Yeah.
And we know, given our buyers are predominantly marketers, LinkedIn's an obvious place for us to be. And then Clay, I guess, Clay are probably a great example of someone who is growing fast and doing a great job of getting that marketing air cover, right? If you're in our world of B2B go-to-market and you haven't heard of Clay, you must have had your head buried. Like they seem to be everywhere. So absolutely. I'm intrigued to like dig into Clay and figure out how far that can reach instead of having to use other products, maybe.
Yeah. I think like Clay recently also, I think it was only maybe 2-3 weeks ago, they have now got a native integration with LinkedIn as well. So I think we're going to see even more people probably like cut out a lot of these other tools and they'll go LinkedIn, they'll have that pull to Clay in some way, or maybe I see a lot of people currently pulling like website traffic, having that pull into Clay, enrich it, compare it to their sales navigator list, and then like compare the people's LinkedIn bio to their own company's blogs to see which might stand out to that individual, draft the message, and then send that to the sales team's inbox. So if they want to send it to the prospect, they can copy and paste it themselves and do that manually. I think that's like a really smart way of doing it. It's using like the AI and the automation to make the salesperson's life easier, give them a foundation and something to look at, but it's not bombarding the buyer. There's still a human that has to actually check it and execute it, rather than just letting things go AWOL.
Yeah, 100%.
I
That's
think
cool.
I'd probably definitely recommend like exploring Clay and some
Yeah.
workflow to get you that list, and you can also enrich with people. One of the I'm kind of thinking aloud here. Another way, if you really know your ICP, and a lot of your ICPs probably very active on LinkedIn and stuff like that, they'll be aware of that. The thing that's becoming really hard for anyone is to like actually engage with the right people on LinkedIn and your prospects and build like a genuine relationship. So a tool that I've seen recently, Teamfluence, you can build a list of all of the ideal prospects on Teamfluence, and it's almost like a curated LinkedIn feed. So instead of just going onto LinkedIn and showing you anything and everything that everyone in your network's posted that day, it will just show you the 300 ICP prospects that you've preloaded. It will just show you their stuff. So you can make sure you're engaging and building a relationship with them
Yeah.
specifically.
That's cool.
And particularly for, I know you're not quite got SDRs in place now, but your time is precious. A tool that maybe helps you just like have a curated feed of just the prospects will help you make better use of your time rather than manually scrolling through LinkedIn and looking for things.
Yeah.
Could be
Yeah,
an
that's cool. That
interesting one
sounds good.
to search.
Yeah, I will check that out. The way like I'm interested in us using LinkedIn. One of the ways I should say with LinkedIn is my understanding is the targeting we can do through LinkedIn is pretty powerful now
Yeah,
to a account and contact level. So and I actually quite like the way LinkedIn has done it. It's subtle. Now it's when you're scrolling down your feed and you see a sort of sponsored
yeah,
post, but it's subtle.
yeah,
And generally speaking, if somebody's targeting me, for example, it's probably because they have got something I may be interested in. So I do often like stop and pause and be like, okay, why are they targeting me? Unlike, I guess, a lot of the rest of the web, right, where we've sort of, I don't know about you, but I've kind of trained myself to sort of ignore the
yeah.
noise and focus on what I'm looking for. So I'm interested in like how we will leverage like the ads through LinkedIn, because I think a nice experience for us will be you see a video of me, for example, on LinkedIn, and then you land on realflow.com and it's like part two of that video, or vice versa. We know you've been on, that account's been on our site, and we can perhaps retarget those accounts back
Yeah,
on
you
LinkedIn
could
with video.
probably with the majority of these like first party intent, therefore like web traffic identifiers, maybe like Elite
Yeah.
Forensics or probably Clearbit, because if you're HubSpot, they own Clearbit now.
Yes.
You could probably have Clearbit identify that list for you, push that into Clay, and then that starts to give you your created list of these are the accounts. In fact, I actually built this for one of my customers the other day. They're going to take the Clearbit data, have that push into HubSpot, have that push into Clay, enrich the 5 contacts with appropriate job titles, and then it will enrich those. So then we're slowly getting the list of people that we think are visiting the website, and then the next step is working out, do we reach out on LinkedIn? Is someone going to cold call through this? Because
Yeah.
as we said, like website traffic is very rarely like high intent, but from like a marketing point of view, that marketing air cover is probably, and especially with Reelflow, like having your face present, it's going to build that
Yeah.
trust faster.
And I think, like as you allude to there, we know just because someone's been on a site probably doesn't give us the right to pick up the phone and be like, hey James, are you ready to buy this thing? Like that's just not the reality of it. So I have to think like in whatever follow up we would do on LinkedIn in this example, can we again like fundamentally can we add some value to that buyer? Can we improve their impression of who we are? Can we give them something useful? Can we help them answer a question? Like I think if you just do those things well consistently, and this is why I keep saying to Will and our team and Andy, like I don't want us just to add to the noise. And are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Of
Just like
course you can. Go for it.
the shit that is out there and that AI is just fueling now. Like we're all getting my LinkedIn inbox is just you can see it a mile off, can't you? When you're just getting the generic terrible outreach. So
Yeah.
like,
And
can we be better than that?
the outreach that really annoys me in my LinkedIn inbox is people sending me outsource SDR or appointment setting or like fractional sales stuff. It's like you have not looked at any of my history. anything that I do. So are you going to, have you sort of, is it definitely LinkedIn? Oh, and actually on the LinkedIn adverts and stuff, you should also go and talk to Matt Heyman at Linklow.
Yep.
I'm sure
Cool.
I think you know him, might
Reelflow
know
user.
him. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
Yes.
He'd be able to give you loads of great advice on how to
Yeah,
utilize
he's
that.
definitely on my list of people to speak to.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the email front, so this is
Yeah.
getting good timing actually. Like I alluded to, right, 10 years ago when we were doing this in a crew, we were sending stuff out from our own inbox and just slamming the sent items. Now, as we all know, like you're asking for trouble doing that. Yeah, I know it's a lot more sophisticated now
Mm-hmm.
with how we will warm up inboxes, make sure we're hitting the right thresholds of emails that we're sending out and trying to do this the right way and avoid kind of getting blacklisted before we've even got off the ground. So it'd be cool to get your take on current state on
Yeah.
email.
I think so. As you're building from from scratch here, I would look at the email, what's going to give you the best email infrastructure first. You see there's a lot here that say Forge, and Frank over there, he's actually come up with like what I think is a really smart way of building it in the same way, and he kind of compares it to like the Microsoft suite. You know, might not buy the whole Microsoft suite, but you probably use Microsoft Word, and then before you know it, you're using Microsoft PowerPoint, and then you're using Microsoft whatever, and suddenly you've got the whole Microsoft Office suite, and you're using it all right. That's kind of what they've done with SalesForge. So InfraForge does the DNS setup, gets you the multiple domains, all that type of stuff. And then you've got WarmForge, which you can add in, and it will do all the warm up and keep the domain safe. Help it get a good reputation by sending and making sure it's receiving warm replies. And then you can slowly, like, I quite like it. It's like building a jigsaw puzzle, I think, for your email infrastructure and the whole email system. And then eventually you can add in SalesForge or LeadForge. So LeadForge will start to give you the data as well and verify email accounts. While SalesForge will then also, if you want, do all the copy, give these suggestions. You don't have to let it write the copy and send. It can write the copy and then you copy it into the sequences that you want. But it's quite a good step-by-step system where you can plug in each section. Or instantly. Instantly is, I think, the market leader pretty much right now for all of the infrastructure. You can pretty much turn it on within half an hour, have everything set up and good to go. The element you wouldn't get is data. So you then need to maybe find data from something, maybe like a find email. Find email is probably the best for verified email data in EMEA.
Clay not surface the email addresses,
Yeah.
or
And that's what I was going to say. With right. Clay, it's got the waterfall enrichment and stuff, and so you can use the tools that are in Clay. Or, if you want to make sure, if you really want the best data, you could still just get a find email or a Apollo or something else and an API it in.
And then given what we do, RealFlow and video,
yeah,
big part of and I've been doing this sort of semi-manually myself to date with some of the early sort of prospecting I've been doing into my network using video as part of my outreach, personalized. Absolutely. In my case, I genuinely have been recording short 60-second pique your interest videos, not scalable, but it's been good, like experimenting with different messaging and how I drop in those video messages into people's LinkedIn inboxes.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you should definitely be looking at that. Something like, and I don't think we haven't added it as a category just yet. It's on a long list of to-dos, but I think I think people used to be familiar with Vidyard, it's okay. But then you've got like SendSpark and Loom, which seem to have taken over. I think the AI and I like the transcription and all that type of stuff that it does is really good. SendSpark is quite interesting to help with maybe some scalability. I think they've got the feature where you can say pineapple and then it will sub in the names and stuff like that, which is probably good, but I think you got to be careful how you use that because I think people will quite quickly realize these days. So if it's just a short,
Yeah.
hey, thought this might be useful, here you are. Maybe that's okay as like part of a cadence. But I think if you're going to send videos, one of them should be specifically recorded for that person. That
Yeah.
goes into a bit more depth as to why you think you could help.
Yeah, you're right. If the novelty of, oh wow, that person just said my name in this video, they must record it for me, will quickly fade, right? Particularly again, if you're selling into like educated tech buyers, people will quickly see through that. So as you say, then it's like, okay, so what can you do in that video to show that it truly is them? So like just as an example, what I've been doing manually with some of my own LinkedIn outreach has been recording a genuine screen share. I don't use Loom. I use a product called Screen Studio, which is a bit like Loom. Like they can see me, you can see my screen, and I do it very quick. Hey, I'm on your LinkedIn profile or your company's profile. I see you're using video. You got some great videos here. Then I flip over to their website, and I'm like, now I'm on your site. Great looking site, but I can see you're not using video here. Let me tell you about Reelflow. We can bring the best. Yeah, and I quickly flip. Then I flick over to Reelflow and do a quick tease of the products, and I'll try and do those in 60 seconds, and then I've been dropping those videos into people's inboxes.
Yeah, nice.
With some success. Like I haven't done it enough to, I guess, prove one way or another whether it truly, and it's obviously not particularly scalable, although they're fairly quick to turn around, but
yeah,
that type of thing I'm keen to experiment
it's
with.
interesting because like I mean, you know my background, like I'm pretty much like cold calling's like a must, but with what you are selling and with RealFlow, the video element like really speaks to you, like you believe in the product, you believe in this positioning of video and the importance of it. So probably it makes sense to use it, and then maybe you could just follow up, like again with Clay and stuff like that. You can also do some elements of lead scoring. So you can just, if you have all of that pulling back to Clay or like your source of truth in HubSpot, so that you can see who's received videos, who's engaged, who's replied. You can then just like time and more selectively pick your calls.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So, are there any other things or any other tools you're kind of considering, or do you think this is kind of like a good starting point for you to explore with?
Yeah, I think from a sales outbound motion perspective, those feel like, we've got HubSpot as our spine. We've talked about sources of good data that we can enrich to populate our contact starting point, tools for actually starting up that outreach across email and LinkedIn, and then phone as and when the timing's right on that. And then obviously driving people ultimately, rather than it being a hard push for, are you ready to sort of book a demo? If we can get people onto realflow.com, and the website does a great job of practicing what we preach, which our current website I think does, but our new website definitely will. And I didn't mention, like, I guess one of the other use cases of RealFlow as part of this sequence would be if I'm doing some really targeted account-based outreach, my call to action could be to land on a particular page, on a landing page on our site that is personalized to that account, and there's a video of me in there saying, hey James, the fact you're here means you saw my email and you clicked on the link. That's great. Let me tell you a bit more about how we could help Stakki with website engagement, etc.
Yeah, I think that'd be really powerful. Like there's a few tools now which I think help with like personalized landing pages and stuff like that. So it's similar along the lines of that, and it's really tying into how I guess people like interact with the world now. Everything you're doing, like more videos, content over just reading lots of stuff. That's what people need these days, and something like this is going to allow you to get the most out of LinkedIn, build like real, I guess, presence, familiarity, and then driving them back to video content, back to RealFlow, where they can be like, oh yeah, Chris, I've seen this post. Actually, yeah, I trust this. It's worth looking at.
Yeah, agreed. Sounds good.
Really nice. Cool. Well, look, been really interesting hearing your story so far, Chris. I think this has probably been one of our best videos, definitely been one of our longest so far. And so really appreciate all of your insight and your willingness to share, and really expect great things from RealFlow.
Yeah, thanks, James. And likewise, that's great. And I'm keen to, that was great, really useful for me to go through and sort of build that out as we went. So that was very cool to see. And I'm
Excellent.
now going to go and start looking at some of those tools we've talked through.
Excellent. Well, look, I'll forward it to you, and you can go back and forth between Stakki, and it will edit on the fly, and you can have a record of where you are. But everyone, if you want to find out more about Reelflow, links will be in the video descriptions. Follow Chris on LinkedIn. He's got a wealth of knowledge about building SaaS, being founder-led sales, building teams, etc. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube and search for Build with Stakki on your socials. Thanks, Chris.
Cheers, James.